Welcome to part 4 in this series on building a FlutterFlow application using the powerful Supabase as the backend. In this particular video, we are going to get our authentication pages set up. So this is the screen that allows you to sign in, allow you to create an account. We're going to put some form validation within inside our application as well to ensure that when the user is actually keying that information in, that it's valid. We're also going to do some additional enhancements where we're actually checking for password matches and things like that. So just to give our application a little bit more resilience when using those particular screens. And then we'll be able to then log into our application, and that'll set us up really nicely in the next video when then we're going to start even building the application out even further. So if you're ready and you're willing to go, let's get cracking. So now that we got our basic login and create pages created, we are now ready to hook up our application to our Supabase project that we just created previously. So what we're going to do is we're going to move over to the settings option here on the left hand side. So just choose a little cog here, and now we're going to move down to the authentication option, and we're just going to enable authentication for our project. So just choose that, and then here you've got a couple of different authentication types. You've got Firebase and Supabase. Obviously we're using Supabase in this application, so just make sure that's selected. And then within inside the initial page, this is where you're going to want to make sure that you've got this set. So our entry page will always be our login page. Now the power of this particular application is that when the user is already authenticated inside your application, they will bypass the login page and they'll be automatically redirected to the logged in page, which is the home page. Now of course, if their session times out for over a period of time, then they'll go straight through to the login page. But that's something that FlutterFlow is going to handle for you. Okay, so just make sure you've got login page set as your entry and your home page as set as your logged in page. So next up, we're going to need to tell our project about our Supabase database that we've actually got created. So if you move down to here to integrations, just select Supabase here on the integration. You can enable Supabase, so just select that option here. And these particular details we're going to need to pull from our Supabase project that we created earlier. So let's do that now. So here I am now within our Supabase project. So I'm going to move over to the cog here just on the left hand side of project settings, and I'm going to move up to API. So these are the settings that we're going to need to take across into FlutterFlow. So the first thing we're going to do is on this URL, we're just going to hit copy. So this is the URL to the location where our FlutterFlow project is going to communicate to our distinct application, which is this particular one here. So you won't see anything here that's kind of easily identifiable, but this is the reference into Supabase that we need. So just make sure you got that copied, and then move back over to your FlutterFlow project, and we're inside the API URL. If you just paste that there, we also need to capture something else, which is a key. So just go back to API settings, and then within inside our project API settings, just take this one here. Okay, so just hit the copy option, and then let's move back over to our FlutterFlow project and just paste that in there. So we can now hit the get schema, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get our details come back. So there we go. So we've got our tasks table that's come back and our goals table here. So pretty well much that's how we left it when we actually created everything within inside Supabase. So there should be no surprises there, but that is a good sign that our application is communicating through to Supabase. So we're set up here. That's great. And the next bit we're now going to do is we're going to move back into the UI, and we're going to start configuring our login page to then hook up and authenticate against Supabase. So let's do that now. So this is the page that we created previously. This is the running version, the final version of the application. You can see here that this is the login page. We can simply just hit the kind of the sign in button out, and our user will then enter the application. So I'll just hit that and in they go. So our application doesn't do that, but we're going to do that now. We're going to set that up. We're going to want to put some defensive application building in here as well. So of course, once the user has tried to key in their details, so for example, we just kind of delete these details out here and we hit the sign in, we're going to want to put some form validation in there as well. We're going to want to make sure our user is actually putting in the right details. And of course, if you put that in there, of course, it will validate that it's an email address. And of course, we want to make sure that we put some limits as well on the password as well, because within Supabase, the minimum password length is 6 characters. So we're going to want to support that within our application. So let's make those enhancements now to our application. Let's get our sign in button hooked up, and we should then be able to get ourselves ready to then create a user account, which is going to be some more modifications to our create page. And then of course, we then should be able to get both of these pages working together. So let's do that now. So here we are then on the login page for our application. We're now going to want to add a form validator into our page. We're going to want to ensure that what the user is typing in is accurate before we actually hit the sign in button to Supabase. So we can simply do that by, on the left hand side, moving over to the column. The column is what contains all of our form fields. So now we're going to want to right click and we want to wrap that widget with another widget called form validation. So just choose form validation and you'll see that it gets created here. We're just going to want to change the name of it, so just make sure that you've got it selected. Up on the top here, we could just want to then change that to say login form. It's always important to rename sort of key widgets within inside your application, certainly ones like this, because we're going to reference these within inside the action flow editor very, very shortly. So once we've got that selected, on the right hand side here, you can see that we've got the validation options for this. The email address and the password are the two fields that it's detected that we actually have within inside our form. Now we're going to want to make some changes to these in just a moment, but let me explain to you what automatically validate means. And what that really is, if I was to turn that on, what that would mean is that as the user is actually typing in to a particular field, then all of the form will end up getting validated. Now that's not going to look particularly great for our users, because we don't want to see big sort of error sort of boxes or red text that would appear when it's not really applicable to the field that we're actually completing. So for large forms, it's not particularly ideal to include that. I know we've only got a small form here, but I just want to keep our application quite clean. So we're going to validate on the point that our user has actually hit the sign in option. Okay, so that's when the form validation will occur. So we're going to keep that turned off, but what we're going to do is move over to the email address here. We're just going to choose this and turn that on, just select it. Now we are going to want to not make too many changes here other than the fact of the text validator here at the bottom. So just choose text validator and choose email. So the values that's going to be keyed into that field will be validated against a valid email. So it will determine whether we're typing in an email that conforms, and if it does conform, then the validation will pass. If it doesn't look like an email address, then the user will see an error message. So let's move now down to the password option just down here on the left, on the right hand side here. Just choose password, just hit that, and we're going to want to make some changes in here. So within the minimum amount of required characters for a password, Supabase only supports 6 or more. So we're just going to want to choose 6 here, and then in our sort of our minimum characters error text. Now this is the text that will appear if the user's typing anything under 6 characters. So I'm just going to paste some text in here, and it's going to be passwords must be 6 or more characters. So that's what will also get displayed on the screen. We don't need to include anything else here, but that should be good for our form. So that is our login form validator set up for the time being. Of course, we're going to want to sort of kick off that form validator, and we're going to do that with inside the sign in action, and that's what we're going to focus on next. So the next change that we're going to want to make is we're going to want to put an action behind this sign in button. So the user's going to have completed the form, they're going to hit the sign in option, and then we're going to need to authenticate against Supabase. But first we're going to want to validate the form. So just hit the sign in here, click on the action flow editor up here, just make sure you've got that selected up the actions, and just click open. And here we are with the on tap event. So here's your different events up here, but on this one we're just going to simply just put one on the on tap of the event. So a very, very quick press of the button. So we're going to now want to add an action, so just choose add action here, and what we're going to do here is we're going to first look for validate here. So let's look for validate form, so let's just choose that, and that's the first one that's going to get selected. And now with the option here where it says unset, we're going to want to choose the login form. Now this is again is where it's quite important that our names of our widgets are quite useful to actually be something more meaningful. So here we've got login form. So that's the first thing that's going to do. That's going to kick off the form validator, and it will not continue with inside this flow until that form is actually valid. So what we're then next up going to do is then we're going to actually then do the key action, which is going to be to then sort of authenticate against Supabase. So let's just choose add action there, and up here we're just going to do a little search for Supabase. There it is, and we're going to go to Supabase authentication, and we're going to want to choose the login option. So just choose login, and then on the auth provider we're going to choose email, because that's the only provider that we currently are supporting with inside FlutterFlow. Of course, depending when you're watching this particular video, there could be more auth providers available, but at the moment there's only email. So we're now going to want to choose our email field again. Important to keep your widget names there, because here we can choose email address, and then the password field is also going to be password here as well. So that's referencing our fields directly within inside our form. Incidentally, you can see here there's this little pen option here. Of course, if you were storing values within inside a variable, which could be in sort of the application state or the page state, then you can actually reference the actual values that you would be storing there. But we're actually just referencing our actual form values directly from on the actual page itself. So just bear that one there for the future if you were looking to do that. So that should be it. That is all that we need to do. Now FlutterFlow will take care of everything else now. As soon as we then validate and we get a successful response back from Supabase, then our application will automatically move through to the home page of our application. Of course, if there's an error that comes back from Supabase, then what'll happen is then there'll be like a message within inside the application to say that the username or the password is incorrect or something like that. So but there's other means and ways that you can actually handle responses back from Supabase, but FlutterFlow provides this really simple for us. It will just block the user from progressing until they've corrected their mistake. So that's all that we need to do. Just hit close there. And then that should be our page now all ready to go. So we can't do nothing with this particular page at the moment because we actually haven't even created any accounts yet, of course. So what we're going to do now is we're now going to work on our create account page. We're going to get that up and running with very similar techniques that we've got here. We'll create an account, and then we should be able to then use this screen then also to log in as well. So let's move on to that now. So here we are then on the running version of the create user account screen. You can see here now that if I put my email address into this particular field here and hit the create account, then the form validation takes place. As I start typing in some details here, I hit create account. It said the password must be 6 or more characters. So it seems to be working quite nicely there for us. If I hit the value there, password must be more than 6 characters. Now if I do type in more than 5, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, but just do 1 2 3 4 5 6 and hit create an account, then we've also got another error that's coming up saying that the passwords must match. So that's like an extended piece of functionality within inside the action flow editor that I've introduced, and we can put that in our application as well, just to make it a little bit more defensive, because we don't want any errors coming back from Supabase there. We want to try and correct it within inside the form directly. So we'll implement all of these features now for this particular page. Here we go. So back in FlutterFlow, I've got the create account page loaded, and I'm going to add the form validation widget to the column that just as we did on the previous screen. So just hit wrap widget here and choose form validation. We're just going to change the name up here to the create account form here to give it a good meaningful name, and then of course we make sure the form validator is selected, and we're now just going to go through now and just modify our validation field. So just choose email address here. We're going to want to choose the validator as an email, just as we did previously. Move down to password here, choose the details we need here. So the minimum number of characters is 6, and then in this particular field, just as we did before, let's just put our content in there. Passwords must be 6 or more characters, and we're just going to click on confirm password as well, and we're just going to do the same thing there as well. So minimum number of characters is 6, and then put that value in there as well. So that's all that we need to do on that particular form there. That's all set up for us. Let's now focus our attention on the create an account actions that we now need to do now. So let's choose the create account option here. Let's move over to the actions, and then let's open up the action flow editor. And the first action I'm going to add is going to be the actual form validation itself. So if we go back and do a little search for to validate form, just choose validate form, and of course I'm going to select my create account form. So that's now going to validate the form. We next now need to add in the piece for Supabase to actually create the account for us. So let's hit the little plus here, click add action, and on the right hand side here just type in Supabase, and we're going to want to select the create account option. So just make sure that's selected, and we're going to choose the auth provider as email, and this is where we're now going to want to set the fields from our application. So just choose the email field here and just choose email address, and the password is going to be be password, and you guessed it, the next one's going to be confirm password. So it's that simple to create authentication with a Supabase. And what will happen now is that if we were to run this application, our form will be validated. If that passes, then straight away our account will be created and they'll be signed in and will be moved to the home page of our application. But that's not particularly defensive, of course, because we do have this little challenge on our hands with the password. Now, if the user types in or mistypes in a password, or it doesn't match, we're going to want to handle that within inside the application itself. We want to try and do that as close as we can at source to when it actually occurs. So what we're going to do is now we're going to extend the application now to include this new error kind of row that will just display this mismatch. We're going to create some page state as well, just to track the visibility of that particular error, and then we're going to come back in here and we're going to see how the error then plays out as far as the logic that we're going to need to add. So let's move over and do that now. So here we are back on the create account page, and we're now going to create this state variable now to track the conditional visibility of the text row that we're going to add very, very shortly. So on the right hand side, let's just choose the little option up here where it says state management. Let's click the add field option, and then inside the field name, I'm just going to paste this in here, but it's called is passwords mismatch. If this value becomes true, because it's going to be of type Boolean, if it's true, then it will display that row. If it's false, then it won't be displayed. So just choose a type where it says here, and then choose Boolean here as an option. Take the little nullable checkbox off. Let's just toggle this field to be red. We don't want it to give it a positive value to start off with. If we left that as enabled, then what would have then happened is that as soon as the page had loaded, we would then see that message appear instantly within inside the UI. So I'm going to keep that one turned off, just hit confirm, and then that's all that we need to do as far as the state management variable is concerned. So let's now move on, and let's now create that row within inside the widget tree. So within the column on the left hand side of our page, just choose that and then hit the little plus option here. So we're going to add a row in, and then within inside that row we're just going to hit the little plus, and we're going to actually add some text in there, and we're going to want to reposition this. Okay, so we're just going to move this above the button, so just hold that down with the left mouse button, move that up, and then just drop that in there. And we're just going to go to our row, and we're just going to want to firstly give our row some padding at the top there of 16. That keeps it then in keeping with the rest of the gaps in between our fields. And then within inside our text here, we're just going to want to make a slight change here. So we're going to go down here to the size, so where it says body medium, choose that down to body small, just makes it slightly smaller. And within inside our primary text, just select that, and we're going to want to choose the error color there just to give it that kind of red look. Now the text that we're going to want to just include in here, of course, will be passwords do not match. Okay, so that's just a very quick statement that just to give the user some guidance there on the status. So that's that. With inside the row now, of course, we now need to give this now some conditional visibility. We're not going to want to display this off the bat, so this is where we now use our state variable here. So let's move up to conditional visibility. Let's just turn that on here, and the conditional visibility that we're going to set is going to be a condition. So just choose conditions, and it's a single condition. It's just a single check that we need to make. So in here, we just need to choose the first value here, choose this, and we're going to go to page state. Okay, and we're going to choose the is passwords mismatch. Now we're going to want to say, is this equal to, and then of course this value in here will actually be a specific value, and it will be true. That's all that we need to do. So if the value is true, then display that message. If not, it disappears. So just hit confirm. So that's all that we need to do to get that row up and running. Now, of course, nothing's going to happen at this particular stage because we're not actually setting that value. So let's now move back into the action flow editor, and let's get that sorted right now with some conditional checks to get that displayed. So let's do that now. So let's move down to our create account button here. Let's choose the actions option up here and then choose open on the action flow. This is exactly where we were before, but now we're going to add a conditional check-in. We want to see, do our passwords match or do they not? Okay, so just within inside the plus here, just choose that and say add conditional. And then up here, we're going to go to conditions, and it's going to be a single condition because we're just checking between the two values. So the first value we're going to be checking will be the first password. So we move down to widget state, and we choose the password there, that one just in the middle, and we're going to say, is that equal to the other one, okay, to the other password value. So this is the confirm one. So we're going to go to the from variable here, and we're going to just choose this, and we're going to go to widget state, and we're going to say confirm password. So we're just saying, are they both equal to each other? Hit confirm. Now, of course, if they are equal, they're going to move in this direction. If they're not equal, they're going to move down in this direction, the negative state, okay? So on this particular location, we're going to want to clear the visibility of that particular row and then carry out the authorization if it's false. So if the passwords are not matching, we just want to make sure that we then display that message that's on the conditional visibility. So let's just do that now. Let's just hit the little plus on the false here, add the action, and we're going to want to update here. So just do a search for update. I can find it here, update page state here, so just choose update page state, hit the add field option, and it's the is passwords mismatch. So we're just going to want to set this particular value so we know that the passwords don't match. So we're just going to go set value, we're going to go here, instead of saying false, we are going to say true. Okay, that's all that we need to do here. And then on what we're going to do here though, we're going to copy this action, and then we're going to go here, hit the little plus, and then we're going to paste that action just here, because what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set it to false, and then we're going to want to do the authorization. Okay, now there's going to be a slight in the UI, the create account is going to happen really quickly, but it's just good practice just to remove any kind of errors from the screen, of course, because if there was an error that come back from Supabase, it may likely not be that the fact of the two passwords are mismatching. So we just want to do good practice there and make sure the UI remains clean all the time. So with inside here, just select this, and we're going to want to just choose this and say false. And then with inside this particular this auth here, we just want to copy this here, and we're going to go up to the little plus, and then we're going to paste that action in here, and then here we're just going to want to then delete that action so it's not needed. So we've got everything we needed. So we know that we're here in a positive territory, down here false. That should be all that we need to do in terms from the form validation perspective. So just hit close, and I think we are pretty close now to trying to run this application to see what behavior that we get. So let's give that a go and let's see what happens in test mode. Actually, before we run this application up, I've just spotted that we haven't actually hooked the pages up to actually take us to the create account page. So with inside the login page, we need to add some action to this particular row here. So just choose that, and we're going to move over to the actions here, and we're just going to click on the add action. And here we're going to just do and just type in navigate. Okay, so we're going to navigate to the create account page, of course, and we're going to allow this. We're going to set all these up as default, and that's all that we need to do. What we're also going to do with inside the create account page, we're just going to do the same thing as well. We're going to go down to the already got an account. We're just going to click on the actions up here. We can add the action in here, and we're just going to go to navigate again. Just type that in, and we're going to navigate back to the login page. So it just allows us to go back and forth between the two pages. Right, that's all that we need to do. So let's now run this in login. Let's actually run this now and try logging into the application. But firstly, we're going to create an account in the test mode. So let's do that now. So here we are in run mode. Let's give this a go. Let's hit on the sign up here option. Let's type in my email address, thedigitalpro@outlook.com there, and let's put a password in here. Okay, so I'm just going to put an invalid password in for starters. Let's just see if that's all working for us. Create an account. There we go. Passwords do not match. That's fantastic. I can just show you here the password that I just typed in there. So it's just mistyped it slightly. So let's just take that off there and then hit the create an account. Let's see if that works. Bingo, that's exactly what we would like to see. Now we've got nothing on our home page whatsoever, so that is fantastic. We should have our account created. Let's just have a quick look in Supabase here. Let's go to the actual authentication here, and you can see here that my account has been successfully created. That's just as I would like to see it. So we're looking good. So hopefully our login page will work as well. So of course if I was just to reload this now, then our application is going to remain logged in. So I'm going to end the session and I'm going to reload it back up so I can try signing in. So I'm going to do that now. So of course I should have realized this, of course, but what I've done is I've ended the session, I've reloaded the application, but of course I'm still authenticated. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put a button on our home page here, just for a convenient way for us to kind of log out us as being a user. Okay, so let's just move back over to the dashboard here. Let's go to our home page and let's really simply just add a little option in here. Let's add a button in, so just choose that. And then we're inside the action flow editor, just select that, say add action. And then we're going to want to go to Supabase here, and then we're going to say log out, and that's all that we need to do. So let's go back to our application. Let's just do a quick instant reload, and then we should then magically see that button should then sign us out of the application. There it is, just hit the button there, and then we're all signed out, which is fantastic. So let's now try logging in now. So let's put my password in. Okay, hit sign in, and then magic. Brilliant. So that's everything working for us. So both our create page is working and our login page is working. Of course, we need a little bit of animation on there as well, as you might have spotted on the actual preview of the final application. We've got some animation going. Of course, we're going to come back and do all of those niceties on another video. But for now, the main key point of this video is to kind of get most of the functionality implemented, and we can put the bells and whistles in a little bit later. So that should be everything we need right now. Thank you for watching this episode, and we are making really good progress with our application. So now that we've got the authentication in place, we're now ready to now start building on the extra parts to our application. We're going to start focusing on the screen that actually then gets displayed once the user is logged in. So thank you for joining me as always. Please do like the video, really appreciate your likes, and of course if you love watching this kind of content, please do subscribe to the channel as well. There's so much more coming from this world of FlutterFlow and Supabase. So yeah, until the next video, I'll see you in the next one.